What is up, everyone? I tried out Ursaluna in the Master League and it is better than I expected. Definitely not as good as it could have been with Shadow Claw as a fast move, for example, but even with Tackle, it has play. We'll talk all about it during the battle, so let's just get started with a Giratina lead. That's a matchup that Ursaluna can absolutely obliterate if they're running the standard triple ghost moveset. So my opponent switches out into Zacian. Don't really have an amazing response here, so I stay in for a little bit, do some tackles, which as you can see they're adding up quickly. Sheared up with that potential close combat there. Ursaluna is insanely tanky, so I could take that, but I didn't really want to. Opponent baited though, which is not ideal, but still fine. I'm just going to try to catch the next close combat on my own Zacian here, which I do manage to do. At least I think I did, and it seems I did, as I did take a close combat right there. Does nothing. Want to throw my own before I get to the next move, but unfortunately it gets to the play rough right before I can get to my close combat there. And they also have a lot more energy stored now, so I gotta be wary of that for the end game. He brings in his Giratina right now, which I can just throw a play rough on, does a ton of damage. This thing, even if it farms me down, that will be fine, since Ursaluna takes nothing from Ominous Wind or Shadow Ball. So my opponent, I think, just plays it safe there, throws the Ominous Wind just to get rid of my Zacian, and now I bring in Ursaluna, and look at these tackles, they're doing nothing. They're absolutely doing nothing to the Giratina, but Giratina's also doing nothing back. That Shadow Ball did like less than 20%, which is pretty impressive. I'm just gonna go for the Thunder Punch so I can farm up a bunch more with Ursaluna. I'm really hoping I can farm down before they can switch out, but actually switch out at 1 HP into Xerneas to save all their energy. It's gonna go straight for the high horsepower here. It does like 50% to a Xerneas, which is a pretty bulky Pokemon, so not too bad. Gonna go into Genesect there, outpace to the Techno Blast Ice. This should knock it out if they let it go, which he does. Tries to bring in Giratina, get off the energy, but since it was 1 HP, the Fury Cutter knocks it out. In comes Zacian now, and I can just take that out with an X-Scissor. That is a good game right there. This next battle, I lead Dragonite into Giratina, running a different team than last battle, as I'm trying out 3 different teams this video, as I just wasn't sure what to pair with Ursaluna just yet. And that is already one of my problems with Ursaluna. It's extremely difficult to build like a super solid squad around it, I think, as it has some very hard weaknesses to Pokemon like Kyogre and fighting types that you have to cover for, and then it has a ton of iffy matchups. For example, versus Dialga. It's a matchup you do generally win. You win the zeros quite convincingly, and you win the twos if you can double bait. But it is iffy, since you have to double bait to win the twos, and if you miss a bait, you're absolutely screwed. So ideally, if you're in Ursaluna, you're gonna want to have more Dialga coverage too. Otherwise, your team will end up being quite weak or iffy against Dialga, which is a very common Pokemon. And the same counts for common Pokemon like Zacian and Mewtwo. Both Pokemon you can beat with Ursaluna, but are iffy. So ideally, the rest of your team also has coverage for those Pokemon. But covering for all of those is quite difficult. They are the Master League meta, and they are meta for a reason. They don't have that many answers. So that's kind of the issue. Covering for all of those is near impossible. But it is possible to make a solid team with Ursaluna by pairing it with 2 Pokemon that already form a solid core with each other, I think. For example, this team has a Dragonite and a Metagross. Those 2 already pair quite well. Team 1 had a Genesect and a Zacian. Those 2 already pair quite well. So in that case, Ursaluna is like, you know, a flex pick that you add in addition to an already strong core. And I think that way you make a pretty solid team. As we take out the Mewtwo right here, GG's. This next team, for example, has a Dialga Mewtwo core, which is an almost unbreakable duo in the Master League. Just these 2 are enough to have enough coverage to deal with anything in this format. And then you just add Ursaluna on top of that to add a ton of bulk, flexibility, and coverage to make the core even better. In this game, I lead into a Ho-Oh, which is definitely not ideal. I'm just going to go straight for the Draco, switch it to Mewtwo. I'm going to get to a Brave Bird right here, though. It's not ideal, but I kind of want to save shields from Ursaluna, so just let it go. Should be able to get to the side strike, but they switch out into the Dialga. Try to go for the Shadow Ball, but unfortunately, I die with the move. It's definitely not ideal. I definitely should have just gone for the side strike, but I was really hoping to get a little bit of extra damage. Go to my Ursaluna here. This is definitely going to be a Draco, so I'm going to shield it up. I think Ursaluna might have still survived that, though, as Ursaluna is quite a tank. Actually, probably not. Draco is very hard hitting. I definitely would have died, actually. But yeah, so I shield it up. Go for the high horsepower. This knocks out the Dialga. What's in the back? It is a Mewtwo. Definitely not ideal. It's a Shadow too. I do get to do the Thunder Punch here. This should... Well, this probably doesn't take a shield, but... Oh, it does, since he knows he can just throw a move immediately here. And then take out my Dialga too, as my Dialga is far enough away from the Iron Head to where the Shadow Mewtwo can just easily, well, not easily, but barely get to the Ice Beam here to knock out my Dialga. GG's. Yep, bye-bye. This next game I face a Xerneas lead, which is definitely not ideal. Xerneas does beat Dialga in every even shield scenario. Unless they throw the close combat immediately, then my Iron Head actually kills, which I do decide to do here. I'm actually going to throw my Iron Head immediately. I'm expecting them to shield this, but that's fine. I want them to shield this, and then I'm going to switch into my Mewtwo. But they let it go. Bye-bye, Xerneas. I really wish I would have farmed up more energy there, because I could have had near an Iron Head loaded there already. But again, I was really expecting them to shield that, but they didn't. Anyway, they brought out Togekiss. Almost farmed down my Dialga there, and then decided to switch into the Giratina, which I respond to with an Ursaluna, because this is so good for Ursaluna. Honestly, if Ursaluna becomes more common, I could honestly see merit to running Dragon Pulse, because if you want to do any damage to this thing, you're gonna need to run Dragon Pulse. Anyway, we're just eating up all this damage. Gonna throw a high horsepower right here, which does a good chunk of damage versus the Giratina. Just gonna keep eating up these Shadow Balls. At this point, I think I'm gonna attempt to farm this down, or I probably would have needed to throw a Thunder Punch, but or switch out at some point. But yeah, my opponent just decides to switch out instead. In comes Togekiss. We're just gonna start hitting Thunder Punches. By the way, I'm running Thunder Punch on it because it is nice to hit flyers like Lugia, Togekiss, Yveltal, and Ho-Oh for super effective damage. But I think there's a lot of play for Fire Punch as well, because then you have more positive matchups versus steel types like Melmetal, Excadrill, and even a little safer matchup versus Dialga. Like, Fire Punch is still gonna do nothing versus Dialga, but it's at least more damage than a failed bait of a Thunder Punch would do. So Fire Punch definitely has some play too, but I'm liking Thunder Punch as well, and I think that's what PvPoke recommends too. Bye-bye Giratina, GG's. Dialga lead. Pretty okay matchup for Ursaluna. Ursaluna actually wins the 0 shields here, just straight high horsepower. She can survive an Iron Head, and they don't get to the Draco before it can get to the high horsepower and knock him out. So this is just an Iron Head. We're gonna let it go. And I can also win the 2 shield here. With 2 baits. You need 2 baits, 2 Thunder Punch baits to hit, which is risky, but could happen. In this case, I get the first bait. I don't really want to risk the second bait, though. So I'm actually going to switch into my Zacian here, since I have 2 okay-ish answers to Dialga on the back as well, in my Zacian and my Genesect. Right, I lured out the Kyogre here, which is pretty fine for me, as both Ursaluna and Genesect don't do great versus Kyogre either. So very glad to have it here. Basically my best Pokemon for Kyogre. Now shield that Surf, go for the close combat here. A little bit of awkward timing, but they're like just at the Surf now, I'm pretty sure. Or now? No, I think they're 1 over. I do think they're 1 over. Actually, no, they're right. Yeah, they're through 10, so they're right there. I can throw 14 Fury Cutters before throw my X-Scissor here to knock out the Kyogre right before they can get to the next Surf. This does knock them out. Now I have a shield. I have energy on my Genesect. I have some energy on my Ursaluna. I'm not feeling too bad here, but I don't have health. I don't have health, which could be a problem. If there's anything with like fast move pressure in the back, I'm in trouble. Overfarm a bunch here on my Genesect, as the Dragon Breath from Dialga aren't doing too much, and I want to have energy load for whatever comes in next, which ends up being the Giratina. I hit the Techno Blast there, switch into my Ursaluna before they can throw a move into my Genesect. They're gonna Ominous Wind, which is interesting, but Shadow Ball would not have knocked out either. They kind of need a boost there, and I do get it. Not great, but that's not gonna save them from this high horsepower, knocking them out by Giratina. In comes Dialga. Fine, they farm me down, but they shouldn't be close to an Iron Head. I get to the Techno Blast. Is this enough to knock out the Dialga? It should be, and it is. GG's. Next game. Buzzwole into my Dialga, and I have Ursaluna in the back really, really bad. But I bring in my Heart Counter, which, you know, I think most people say it's not a great ID, but I think in this case, it's a pretty good ID. Because what I want to do is I want to lure something out, Hopefully get it low enough to where I can farm it down with Dialga and then have energy loaded for the Buzzwole in the back. That is my plan at this point. Win with shield up and energy up Dialga. So I'm gonna play that out. I'm just gonna let the Sky Attack go. And the next one too. I could get to my Shadow Ball here. But if they no-shield my Shadow Ball, I'm done. Because the Buzzwole just destroys both my Dialga and my Ursaluna. So I just had to no-shield and just go for a huge energy lead on Dialga. They could have thrown a Sky Attack there, but they were trying to go for the Aero Blast and I just died with it. So that's great for me. Opponent got a bit greedy. We take that. In comes a Landorus now. I'm just gonna go straight for the Draco. Straight for the Draco. Not expecting a shield, and they don't. Bye-bye Lando. Switch in my Ursaluna now. Really hoping they debuff themselves with a superpower here. So I'm just gonna no-shield. But if they lunge, that's fine too. Shouldn't do that much, and I will even get to 1 or 2 moves then. Go for a Thunder Punch. This will do some damage here. Or take a shield. They actually shielded. Probably expecting Fire Punch, but no, I'm running Thunder Punch. And I get to another one. Look at the bulk Ursaluna has. It is insane. Ursaluna is super bulky in this meta. Surviving so many counters. And now I bring in Dialga. And I should be fine to just get to the Iron Head. Or even Dragon Breath down. But I'm so close. I might as well just throw the Iron Head at this point. Take out the Buzzwole. And that is a good game right there. Bye a Buzzwole. In this final game we see a Giratina lead, but not the fun type of Giratina. No, it is the slow, bulky type of Giratina. Altered? Yeah, that's altered, right? And they bring in a Landorus after farming up a bunch of energy on it, probably trying to catch a high horsepower. I didn't let that happen. I switched into my Genesect. This is not ideal though. Superpower will do a ton. There's another one right now, which is why I don't throw my Techno Blast, as Landorus would win CMP. So since they're 5 Mitchells away, I'm just gonna throw 9 Fury Cutters before throwing my Techno Blast. Basically at 100 energy too, so I'm only gonna need like, I think, 4 more Fury Cutters. No, 3 more Fury Cutters for my next Techno Blast, I think, since 55 energy. And 3 Fury Cutters will be 12. Exactly enough for another. Anyway, they're gonna throw a Shadow Sneak before I can do that though. So that's not ideal, but I still got Ursaluna with a high horsepower ready. This will do a good chunk to Giratina. Keep in mind, Giratina is like a insanely bulky Pokemon, and it still did a decent chunk. Like, this thing does decent damage. High horsepower is a pretty good move. It is a pretty good move. High horsepower is definitely not what is holding Ursaluna back. That's Tackle. Like, Tackle just isn't that amazing. Of course, it is. Well, it is a Dragon... No, it's not. It's a Lick clone. It's worse than Dragon Breath. The same energy as Dragon Breath, but worse. No, did it say energy? Oh, it did say energy. I did mean energy. Yeah, it's the same energy, but worse damage, which is, of course, not awesome. And it's a normal move too, so it does resist it against all the Steel types and Ghost types in this meta, which are quite a few. And then just neutral versus everything else. It doesn't do super effective versus anything, which just makes Tackle so disappointing. But it still charges kind of fast. It still charges kind of fast, and they are doing some damage. Like we saw Ursaluna do damage versus Zacian earlier. That was pretty nice. That was pretty nice. It's not doing anything versus Giratina, of course, since this thing has a lot of HP. And the tackles are basically just doing 1 HP apiece. But still, with high horsepower, it's putting in a lot of work. It's putting in a lot of work, and these Dragon Claws are doing nothing. So, I think Ursaluna, even though its moveset is suboptimal, of course, I think it still has quite a bit of play. It's just a huge tank. It's a very huge tank, as we take another Dragon Claw, and these Shadow Claws are doing nothing. High horsepower hits a lot of the meta super hard, and then it has a nice bait move. So, in Thunder Punch or Fire Punch, which does make Ursaluna a bit inconsistent, because if you miss baits, like, that's trouble. But if you get shields down, I think Ursaluna can do a lot of work in this format for sure. I do still hope they're gonna buff it somehow in the future by, for example, giving it Shadow Claws a fast move, as that would make it pretty top meta in the Open Master League, which I think is a good thing. The Open Master League has been still for a long time, and it's just super inaccessible. Honestly, it is one of my favorite leagues. I think it's a very well balanced format, but it's just filled with legendaries that you have to pay so much money for to get to level 50. So having a Pokemon that's not a legendary in the top meta would be pretty nice. Anyway, even in the current state, it is very usable. I don't think it's going to be top meta, but I think we'll definitely see it in some teams and do some work. Anyway, let me know what you think about Ursaluna down in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next one. Good luck with your battles, trainers.